Alright, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be doing a video that you probably think we have no business talking about, because Elden Ring isn't even out yet. But it's because it's not out yet that I don't want to burn myself out on talking about it. So today we're going to do something a little different and go over what could potentially be coming after Elden Ring. And it's going to be ranked in order of least likely to most likely. And this isn't only going to be my opinion, we're going to go with objective evidence to judge just how likely these different games are going to be as the next candidate in Fromsoftware's catalog. But before we do that, I have a quick update for you guys pertaining to Elden Ring. The new Miyazaki interview in Edge magazine drops in 4 days. And for those of you that don't know what that's going to be like, he's going to be breaking down a lot of details about Elden Ring. But more specifically, he's going to be going in depth on the character of King Godfrey, who, as you guys know if you've been keeping up with the lore, is probably the most influential character in the whole story. Now, I'm going to be covering this as soon as it drops, and that is going to be a video you're not going to want to miss. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that video, but without further ado, let's get into the ranking. Coming in at the very bottom of our list today is going to be Dark Souls 4. Now, this is probably the only one that we can go ahead and say is definitely not going to happen. I know, as much as people joke about Elden Ring basically being Dark Souls 4, there are a handful of people out there that actually want a fourth installment of the Dark Souls games. And not just because of the gameplay, they want one that can continue the story in the universe. And if you're a lore nerd like me, you know that's not possible. In the past, we have entertained the idea of spin-off games, kinda like Dark Souls 2 did, where it took a different location in the world and told their story based on the problems that were already set up in the first game. Now, while that could potentially work based on the lore, Miyazaki has made it painfully clear why he doesn't want this game to happen. He's kinda gone back and forth, if you want to go dig for quotes, on saying that he doesn't want Fromsoftware to only be the Dark Souls company. But at the same time, he's also said that Dark Souls is only on hold and could potentially come back. So whichever stance you want to hold on that, I'm sure you could find a quote to confirm your bias. However, the thing that stands out the most to me is how much he's expressed his passion on creating new worlds. He's described Elden Ring as the evolution of Dark Souls, and I'm sure based on everything we have, this game is not going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and give Dark Souls 4, based on its chance of happening, a 1 out of 10 score. And the only reason I'm even giving it that 1 point is because this is the world of business and you never really know. But moving on. Next up on the list is a game that I really want to happen. And as much as I want it, I don't think it's going to. And that is Sekiro 2. Now, it's no secret that Sekiro was a very experimental game. This game was Fromsoftware's way to test new ideas and see if they would stick based on the current Souls formula. And man, they definitely did. Sekiro is one of those games that I think, if they did decide to continue, could have the same cultural impact as Dark Souls. When this game came out, I saw a ton of new eyes going over to Fromsoftware who had never played the Souls games before. So much so that it ended up getting Game of the Year. And I think definitely if they did decide to continue this game, this would be a very profitable franchise. But I know for a fact Fromsoftware is not going to take on that burden. And because of that, the evidence for Sekiro 2 is basically unheard of. And like I said at the beginning, the whole purpose of Sekiro was to try these new experimental features like sneaking and a more involved story, and test that on the community and get their feedback. And as we saw, the feedback was very positive, which is why we're seeing those things in Elden Ring. Now, I'm not going to completely rule out the idea of Sekiro 2 based on one thing, and that is that if you did the Dragon's Returnal ending, the game does actually set up for a sequel pretty well. However, as I said, besides that, there is no evidence whatsoever for a Sekiro 2. So for a possibility score, I'm giving Sekiro 2 a 3 out of 10. And man, it hurts because this is the one I want more than anything, but it's just probably not gonna happen. Up next on the list is one that I'm sure everybody is sick to death of hearing about, and that is a new Bloodborne game. If you keep up with Bloodborne news, then you know that it's almost monthly that the hashtag starts trending, and then we conveniently get a lot of leaks and rumors suggesting that it might happen. Now, I've covered a lot of those here on the channel. One's talking about a PC port, which by the way, I'm not changing my stance on because I do believe that it will happen eventually, although we just have no idea when that could be. But we've also had a lot of rumors about Bloodborne 2. Now, here's the thing. I do not think Bloodborne 2 is going to happen from Fromsoftware. Just like with Sekiro, Bloodborne was also an experimental title, and Miyazaki has stated how he doesn't want to continue series like that. But here's the thing, Bloodborne 2 is different in that you can't completely count it out, and the reason for that is, unlike Dark Souls, Bloodborne is not Fromsoftware's IP. The rights to Bloodborne belong to Sony. so it's not up to Miyazaki. Any possibility of a Bloodborne 2 happening is strictly going to be Sony's decision, and they can choose whatever developer they want to make that game. Now, love it or hate it, that's the reality. And because of that, we have a lot of evidence of this game actually happening, although not by Fromsoftware. There are a lot of very credible leaks suggesting that Bluepoint could be making this game. Now, as many of you know, they were the studio that made the Demon's Souls remake, and there were a lot of mixed opinions on that. But the truth is, it got them a lot of respect from Sony, so much so that Sony actually bought them out. And there are a lot of reliable fingers pointing to the project that they're working on being Bloodborne 2. Now, I'm not here to debate if this is a good or bad thing, that's just the evidence we have. So if I'm going to give this a score, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10 coming from Fromsoftware and a 6 out of 10 from another studio. But ultimately, we're just going to have to wait and see for this one. The next possibility I want to talk about is something you might not have expected, and that is for Fromsoftware's game after Elden Ring to be something completely new. Now, we know how much Miyazaki likes to take on fresh projects. Like we saw with Deracine, sometimes you just never know what they're gonna do. And I think that's what we always need to account for when thinking about their next project. And as I mentioned multiple times, Miyazaki's favorite thing to do is create a new world for a game to be set in. And we'll talk about this more in a minute, but I think either their next game or the one after is gonna be something very experimental. And I can't really go into detail about that without talking about what's coming up next, but simply based on their history and pattern, I'm gonna give a completely new experimental project a 7 out of 10. Now for the game that I think is most likely going to come after Elden Ring is actually another Elden Ring game. Now that's not just a cop-out, this is by far what we have the most evidence for. Elden Ring is shaping up to be the next big franchise and evolution for Fromsoftware. And that's not just me saying that. Bandai Namco is on record multiple times describing Elden Ring as their next big franchise. Now if you want to get into the nitty-gritty about it, you know that a franchise means anything that has multiple renditions. So if Elden Ring is going to have DLC, then technically it could be listed as a franchise. But it's their language when they talk about it that really hints at something new. The CEO of Bandai Namco in several press releases has stated that they want to bring the Elden Ring franchise beyond the game to fans around the world. Now, it is possible for Elden Ring to be a standalone game, and I am going to interject my own opinion in here. I just think this feels very different to Sekiro and Bloodborne, where with those games you could easily tell it was going to be a standalone, and not so much the next evolution for the studio. Now, the biggest thing to me that tells there are going to be more games to this is that they're choosing to go with Bandai Namco again. Both Bloodborne and Sekiro were standalone projects for Activision and Sony. Those studios had to go out of their way to get Fromsoftware on board. However, Bandai Namco is their home turf. Is how often they're referring it and trying to sell it as a franchise. And so simply based on all the business jargon associated with it, I do believe Elden Ring is going to be their next big universe for a few games. But let me know what you think down below. As for my score on it, I'm giving an Elden Ring sequel an 8 out of 10. Although I do think there is a decent chance we see an experimental project between then. But these are just my thoughts on it based on the very loose evidence that we have. What do you guys think is the most likely game we get after Elden Ring? Either way though, I just wanted to do something different today because we have a lot of Elden Ring speculation to get through before release and I don't want to burn myself out. But if you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.